Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with all of you today, sharing thoughts on how celebrating small wins can keep us motivated and propel us toward larger goals. Speaking not just as someone who has seen success, but also as someone who has faced failure head on and learned to appreciate every incremental step forward. Let's begin. I once experienced a devastating moment early in my entrepreneurial journey. Back when I was pushing the boundaries with a new venture, I poured not only my finances, but also my entire sense of self into making this project a reality. I had a talented team, a visionary concept, and a burning desire to prove we could change the world in our niche. The stakes were high, and I was convinced we were on the brink of disrupting an industry. Yet, after months of intense work, we hit a major roadblock. Our technology demo failed spectacularly in front of potential investors. Components malfunctioned, and our presentation stalled. Overnight, the confidence we built evaporated. Investors hesitated, team morale plummeted, and I was left questioning whether all my efforts had been in vain. Pacing the office at midnight, feeling certain that this glaring setback might be the end of our dream. The pressure was immense, and there were days when I wondered if I could ever bounce back from such a blow. It wasn't just about money, it felt personal, like my own capabilities were being tested to the limit. In the depths of that low point, however, something remarkable happened. While troubleshooting a minor software patch, just tiny that reduced our system's latency by a fraction of a second, we saw a sliver of hope. It was the slightest improvement, barely visible to the untrained eye. And yet, that fraction of a second pointed to a potential breakthrough. I realized we weren't starting from zero. We had learned volumes from our failure, and if we could find the courage to highlight even the tiniest progress, that recognition sparked a renewed drive within the team. A sense of stability returned because that small fixed proof we weren't entirely wrong. We just needed to keep refining. Glimmer changed our outlook and gave us permission to believe there might be more wins, however modest, waiting to be discovered. I share this because many of you are likely on similar paths or have felt the sting of setbacks. When obstacles loom large, it's all too easy to slip into a mindset where we only see the gaping chasm between us and our ultimate goals. But in nearly every challenge, there's a hidden spark of progress. Some small indicator that all is not lost. Recognition of these tiny signals can transform despair into determination. By celebrating small gains, we shift our internal narrative from failure to possibility. Small space of knowledge and the power to persevere. And so, my proposition to each of you is both simple and informative. Let's commit to noticing and celebrating the small wins. We do this not to diminish the importance of our big ambitions, but to ensure our daily efforts stay energized in an age where rapid results are glorified. Embracing incremental achievements can be the difference between burnout and sustainable growth. Think of it as a long-distance marathon rather than a sprint. Every step matters. When we choose to highlight the positive strides we take each day, we propel ourselves and those around us forward, fueling resilience necessary for the bigger leaps ahead. Let's dive deeper into how that works and matters. Have you ever paused to consider how many mini victories you accumulate in a typical day? Often, we become so fixated on grand milestones like securing major funding or landing a prestigious client that we miss the tiny yet significant progress markers along the way. Think about the simple instances, the moment you refine a process by just a fraction, or the day you finally solve a small, persistent technical glitch. These minor triumphs might appear inconsequential. They serve as powerful reinforcements of our drive and capability. So why do we neglect them? Perhaps it's our perpetual pursuit of perfection, or maybe it's our culture's emphasis on big wins over subtle achievements. Regardless, the question, how can we shift our perspective so that each incremental gain, however modest, sparks the motivation to keep striving toward our ultimate objectives? That is the challenge we face in nurturing a more sustainable form of ambition. I once encountered a small robotics firm that epitomized the power of recognizing incremental progress. When I first visited their modest workspace, nothing suggested future success. Their budget was limited, their prototypes clunky, and their production capacity underdeveloped. Each day, the team struggled to refine algorithms that governed mechanical movements. At times, the robots toppled over, short-circuited, simply failed to respond. These persistent malfunctions tested everyone's patience and self-belief. Yet, this team had a distinctive culture, made a point to acknowledge every single time a robot achieved even the slightest improvement. The lead engineer, for instance, point out how a prototype stayed upright 2 seconds longer than before, how a small software patch saved half a millisecond of processing time. Instead of treating those tiny advancements as inconsequential, displayed them on a simple progress board, celebrating each with a quick moment of applause or a congratulatory note. Over time, these minute steps added up, not just in terms of mechanical efficiency, but in collective moral momentum. The team members felt their efforts were validated daily, which fueled them to push further, test new ideas, and maintain optimism even in the face of daunting technical setbacks. Interestingly, this practice of spotlighting small wins had a ripple effect on other aspects of their business. Members of the sales team took note and started acknowledging incremental improvements in lead conversion rates. Administrative staff began sharing minor process optimizations that streamlined paperwork. Single one of these achievements seemed earth-shattering on its own, but the accumulation of these micro-successes lifted the entire company spirit. Within a year, that once overlooked robotics firm began attracting attention. Investors who visited were struck by the team's extraordinary drive and positive atmosphere. Prospective clients noticed a consistent upward trajectory in prototype performance. While major breakthroughs certainly mattered, like forging a new partnership or finalizing a critical patent, it was the company's ongoing celebration of small wins that laid a robust foundation for sustainable growth. Eventually, their robotics solutions found a market niche, focusing on specialized equipment for delicate assembly tasks. The improvements they made, step by step, allowed them to move from a collection of shaky prototypes to a refined product line that genuinely impressed industry veterans. Their story, though not plastered across major headlines, exemplifies how a focus on small-scale victories can gradually transform an organization's potential. By embracing each incremental gain, they built a cycle of positivity and progress. The result was a heightened sense of collective ownership and a series of compound improvements that, when taken together, propelled them into a realm few had imagined was achievable for such a modest startup. They set a new standard for incremental success globally. What makes this approach so effective? In many endeavors, we measure progress through key performance indicators or major milestones. These metrics sometimes overshadow the subtle but meaningful increments that build toward larger goals. When we talk about celebrating small wins, we're referring to a psychological and cultural strategy grounded in well-established behavioral and motivational principles. A key factor is the release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter in the brain that contributes to feelings of pleasure, reward, and motivation. Each time we recognize a small success, our brain responds with a dopamine hit, making us more inclined to repeat or deepen the activity that led to that reward. Over time, this mechanism cultivates a mindset set of resilience and persistence as we come to associate even challenging tasks with incremental rewards. Moreover, from an organizational perspective, small win recognition fosters a shared sense of progress. Groups that frequently highlight minor achievements create an atmosphere where people feel seen, appreciated, and encouraged to take risks. This collaborative spirit can reduce fear of failure, since team members learn that their efforts don't have to result in monumental breakthroughs to be valued. Lowering the psychological barrier associated with big, daunting targets, the culture of small win recognition team aspires to experiment more, innovate with less fear, and maintain momentum through trial and error cycles. There's also a strategic dimension at play. Each small victory acts as a feedback loop, providing real-time information about what works and what doesn't. When employees or innovators celebrate a small efficiency gain, they're not just congratulating themselves, they're documenting a piece of data that can inform future decisions. This iterative awareness helps organizations pivot more quickly and optimize processes before they become entrenched. In essence, by acknowledging incremental progress, you turn your entire operation into a living laboratory of improvement. Historically, businesses that have embraced a culture of continuous improvement, like certain Japanese manufacturing giants, have reaped enormous benefits from a philosophy centered on small, ongoing enhancements rather than sporadic radical changes. A relentless focus on continuous improvement is a prime example of how small step philosophies can become a cornerstone of success. Startups benefit similarly when they incorporate these principles into their ethos. Instead of waiting for the market release, they gather momentum through small, frequent product updates, using feedback loops and micro pivots. Each incremental advancement cements confidence internally and builds trust externally, whether with investors, customers, or strategic partners. Such trust and incrementalism not only safeguards against burnout, but also nurtures a forward-looking mentality. Each small win contributes to a mosaic of possibility, illustrating that progress is both tangible and ongoing. This growing tapestry of achievement draws people deeper into the mission, fueling resilience through every obstacle that arises. So how can we systematically celebrate small wins within a team or an individual workflow? One practical tactic involves setting micro goals. Instead of focusing solely on the final destination, break down major tasks into smaller, more achievable objectives. Each time micro goal is met, with a moment of recognition, this could be a quick mention in a daily stand-up meeting or a simple note that highlights the incremental progress. Another approach is to maintain visible progress trackers. It's a shared digital dashboard or a physical board. Track each incremental improvement for everyone to see. Transparency allows team members to appreciate how their efforts compound over time. Equally important is encouraging open dialogue about small failures. The process of aiming for micro goals will inevitably involve tiny missteps. By normalizing these within a supportive environment, Teams avoid the trap of perfectionism and learn to pivot quickly. Establishing rituals, such as a 5-minute daily reflection on progress, can help individuals internalize the significance of incremental achievements. During these check-ins, ask what micro goals were accomplished, what was learned, and how these wins can be replicated or improved upon. Leaders play a critical role here. But modeling behavior, publicly celebrating small milestones, asking team members about their micro goals, and offering constructive feedback, they set a standard that values incremental improvement as much as final outcomes. In doing so, they nurture a team dynamic that rewards creative risk-taking. Small win celebrations don't have to be elaborate. A heartfelt, well done, can work wonders. The key is consistency and sincerity. Integrated into everyday routines, these acknowledgments become second nature, weaving a culture of recognition throughout the entire organization. The ultimate objective is to shift our collective mindset. So we see every forward step as part of a meaningful journey. With each day, progress accumulates and fuels ambition. In essence, the first key to sustaining motivation is learning to spot the small but steady stepping stones that lead to lasting success. Whenever we allow these mini achievements to shine, we reinforce our own tenacity and spark the collective energy of those around us. By doing so consistently, we cultivate a fortitude that outlives isolated triumphs and weathers unforeseen challenges. As Henry Ford once said, coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. So let's keep that in focus. And in that sense, each subtle advance becomes a testament to our capacity to transform visions into realities and to reality, deliberate step at a time. As you look ahead, ask yourself, small victory can I celebrate today that will kindle tomorrow's determination? The answer might just be the spark that keeps your mission alive and ever evolving. Your next breakthrough emerges from the consistent honoring of these unsung triumphs day by day. Now, let's shift our attention to a different angle of celebrating small wins by exploring the power of storytelling. How narratives anchor our incremental progress, and how each chapter in our journey reinforces the ultimate goals we strive for. A few years ago, I visited a cutting-edge software startup that had a compelling origin story. They began in a cramped garage with 3 friends tinkering on a platform they hoped would revolutionize collaborative project management. None of them had deep pockets or major investors backing their idea. Kind of vision and unrelenting drive. In those early days, they shared one worn-out laptop and borrowed internet connectivity from a neighbor. Their breakthrough, at least on the surface, seemed non-existent. Yet each of them remembers the exact moment their perspective shifted. It was the day their product's beta version managed to sync 2 remote users in real time without crashing. Hardly headline news, right? But to them, it was monumental. They sat in that dimly lit garage, watching in awe as the screen showed one user's cursor moving on the other's interface in perfect unison. That was their story hook. The moment they still recount at conferences and then among new hires, the visible cursors on the screen, and neither of them froze. It's a bit humorous, but it underscores the power of small wins in shaping a bigger narrative. That small success, they found the courage to approach a mentor for feedback. Their system robust, far from it, but it worked just well enough to spark excitement. Soon, they added a few more features. Every time they enhanced stability by even a slight margin, they celebrated. They began telling each other mini success stories at the end of each week. Hey, we cut load times by 15%. Let's order a pizza and talk about the next steps. These little celebrations became woven into their culture. Eventually, they formed the habit of documenting these short weekly triumphs in a shared log, which later blossomed into a kind of internal newsletter. That newsletter reminded them, and later, their small but growing user base, of how far they'd come. The situation developed further when a local angel investor read one of their informal updates. He was intrigued not just by their product's potential, but by their spirit of consistent progress. When he finally visited them, he half-expected a slick office with a polished pitch deck. Instead, he found the same cramped garage, a ragtag group of developers, and a whiteboard filled with daily micro goals. One corner of the board read, Cleanser Sync Test. From 1 second lag to 0.8 seconds, another section highlighted, user suggestions integrated 3 out of 5 completed. Nothing screamed, giant leap, but it all radiated a sense of constant forward motion. The angel investor described that environment as the hum of incremental success, a place where no progress, no matter how small, went unnoticed. I recall him telling me how impressed he was by the dedication to chronicling each step forward. He understood that startups often rely heavily on hope, but this team had replaced blind optimism with tangible evidence of daily improvements. Their challenges were many. They had no large marketing budget. They lacked the industry connections to sign big clients. They were still refining their platform's core functionality, but each time an investor or a curious potential partner asked for updates, the team could spin a story of weekly progress. Last week, we fixed a bug that cut user load time in half, and this week we managed to support 10 more simultaneous users without crashes, they'd say. These incremental triumphs didn't just keep morale high. They helped build credibility in small but meaningful doses. Of course, real challenges surfaced. Stability issues would reappear whenever they pushed new updates. Users discovered strange glitches, like a chat window that would freeze if you typed too quickly. Their solutions involved long hours and occasional rewrites of core code. But with every fix, they documented the story behind it. How did they identify the glitch? What was the user's reaction? How did they solve it? Each anecdote became a mini chapter in their ongoing saga, and they learned to celebrate each resolved glitch as one small victory in service of a larger vision. Never pretended these improvements were huge breakthroughs, but they recognized their importance to the end user's experience. The most striking lesson they learned was about the power of framing these small wins as building blocks for something bigger. Instead of overshadowing them with promises of future greatness, allowed these incremental successes to stand on their own, each a step in toward a more comprehensive solution. This mindset set kept both their team and early adopters engaged. Momentum built gradually but consistently. Eventually, after multiple rounds of these micro celebrations, their platform stabilized enough to catch the attention of a regional tech magazine. The interactive garage team that never stopped improving. The coverage, modest as it was, brought a new beta users, which in turn produced more feedback and more small wins. They repeated the cycle, each time adding fresh stories of solved problems, improved features, and user testimonials. Sometimes new challenges arose. Discovered that certain enterprise clients required stringent data security protocols. Implementing advanced encryption was daunting for such a small team. Once again, they approached it incrementally. They segmented the project into bite-sized tasks, and each completed piece received a quick but meaningful acknowledgement. When the encryption module finally went live, it represented not just a single victory, but the culmination of dozens of smaller ones. They shared a milestone widely, turning it into a narrative of listen, we learned, and we iterated our way to a robust solution. But in that storytelling pattern, the main challenge is lack of resources. Technical glitches and user demands each came with their own set of incremental solutions. Though none of these solutions felt revolutionary in isolation, collectively they shaped a continuous improvement story. The ability to articulate and celebrate those small wins acted like a magnet for new talent, too. Prospective engineers and designers hearing about the team's dynamic culture, to be part of a place where every contribution, no matter how minor, counted. The small wins philosophy attracted people who thrived on progress, not just on accolades for final results. As the startup grew, documented these lessons learned in an internal wiki. Each time they overcame a challenge, they captured what had happened, how they addressed it, and why it mattered. This served not just as a historical record, as a living guide for newcomers. Reading through the wiki felt like walking through a tapestry of incremental success stories. Moments that, strung together, revealed how celebrations of each step fueled a much bigger outcome. Interestingly, these stories also helped them refine their user onboarding processes and shape their product roadmap. Realize that the narrative of their own small wins mirrored what their users needed: incremental improvements, consistent communication, and a sense that a bit of progress, a pavement progress, was paving the way for something greater. Ultimately, they launched the full version of their collaborative project management platform to a warm reception. Critics lauded the platform's intuitive features. What users loved most was the sense the product itself was constantly improving, shaped by real human stories of trial and error. The startup even integrated a progress timeline within the application, displaying version updates and newly added features. Each update was accompanied by a short anecdote of what the improvement entailed and why it mattered, echoing the very approach they had followed behind the scenes. The journey stands as a testament to how small wins, when consistently celebrated and woven into a compelling narrative, can help you overcome significant hurdles, build enduring loyalty among stakeholders. The biggest lesson was simple: never underestimate the power of micro successes to generate macro impact, provided you share the story effectively. They recognize that humans are wired for narratives. We resonate with stories that show incremental heroism, those small daily battles won, culminating in larger triumphs. Each glitch fixed, each feature refined, each user praising a minor tweak connected to a drumbeat of positivity and reassurance. It showed a living process that people could root for. As Walt Disney once said, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. For this startup, the doing was seldom about massive leaps. It was an ongoing process of trial, error, and small yet meaningful victories. Those daily wins, shared across the team, documented in logs, and celebrated with sincerity, gradually shaped a robust product and a thriving community around it. The accumulation of these micro successes formed a culture that made obstacles seem surmountable, as long as the team approached piece by piece, story by story. We can all draw lessons from their experiences. First, frame each minor success as a narrative milestone, reminding everyone involved that no victory is too small to matter. Second, document these wins in a way that new team members, investors, Customers can easily follow the journey. When people can see your trajectory of steady improvement, they're more likely to trust your capacity to adapt and overcome. Third, remember that even the intangible aspects of progress, like reduced team stress or better internal communication, deserve a place in your larger story. Fourth, provide feedback continuously. Each suggestion you incorporate and each complaint you resolve can become another small success to celebrate. Another advantage of weaving a storytelling approach around small wins is the emotional connection it creates. Humans respond better to stories than raw data points. Hearing pre-improved by 2% is fine, but hearing we solved a loading issue that prevented a real-time user from finalizing their project on time resonates more deeply. Emotional hook is crucial for building lasting relationships with your audience, be they customers, collaborators, or even future hires. Transforms your journey from a cold statistic to an evolving saga people want to follow. The storytelling approach also mitigates negativity. When every incremental failure is reframed as a learning chapter, you reduce the fear surrounding mistakes. You begin to see setbacks not as dead ends, but as plot twists that deepen the narrative. This perspective fosters resilience, enabling you to persevere through tougher times. It also ensures that the broader team remains emotionally invested, recognizing that progress can emerge even from the smallest gleaned insights. Of course, building and maintaining this mindset is not without its hurdles. Teams can grow complacent if they rely solely on celebrating without pushing for bigger innovations. The key is balance. Keeping the end vision in view, whether that's launching a transformative product or scaling a service globally. You allow these smaller achievements to serve as markers, not final destinations. If you ignore them altogether, you risk letting discouragement seep in when inevitable challenges arise. The sweet spot is cultivating a narrative that celebrates every inch forward while keeping everyone's eyes on the broader horizon. All told, the power of storytelling and celebrating small wins lies in how it sustains energy and engagement over the long haul. It transforms a scattered series of incremental improvements into a cohesive tale of perseverance and growth. Each new chapter, you reaffirm a simple but potent message of progress is happening, we're learning, and together, we're edging closer to the ultimate goal. This can be especially potent in today's high-speed, high-pressure environments where the next breakthrough can feel impossibly distant. By highlighting how far you've already come, you create the momentum needed to press on. That brings us to the intersection of storytelling and data analysis. Our third key point: if narratives capture hearts, then validated metrics and trends can appeal to minds, offering the rational reinforcement needed to keep celebrating small wins. Before we transition, take a moment to reflect on your own journey. What chapters are you writing that you might be overlooking? Which tiny victories have you not yet spun into the storyline of your success? Those details can be the difference between a team that's simply doing its job and one that's forging a path towards something extraordinary. Let's now examine how analysis and measurable outcomes further anchor these incremental victories, ensuring that our sense of progress is not just felt emotionally, but proven tangibly. Data often gets a bad rap for being dry or dispassionate. Yet, when used skillfully, it can become a supportive partner to your storytelling, painting a clear picture of incremental gains and validating the sense of progress. Duality, heartfelt narrative, and objective evidence is what we'll explore next as we delve deeper into the reasons behind celebrating small wins. Numbers have a way of grounding our enthusiasm, shining a light on what's genuinely working and where we might need to pivot. The trick is to interpret them in a manner that reinforces the story we're collectively writing, rather than letting raw data overshadow or contradict the emotional milestones we've established. We'll dive into statistical data market trends, depth research to see how they can guide practical applications and shape future predictions, while reinforcing that celebrating small wins isn't just feel-good fluff. It's a measurable driver of success. Let's turn our gaze toward the analytical frontier of small win celebration, where metrics become allies and every data point is an opportunity to confirm the impact of those incremental steps. We look at celebrating small wins through the lens of statistics. We begin to see measurable correlations between incremental recognition and sustained motivation. One study found that teams who practiced weekly acknowledgement of minor achievements showed a 20% increase in overall productivity compared to teams that focused only on end goal metrics. SET revealed that employee retention rates improved by up to 15% in organizations that consistently honored small contributions. These figures may not seem astronomical, represent a statistically significant edge in a competitive market. Market trends further illuminate why celebrating small wins has become more relevant than ever. We're operating in an era that values agility. Products and services evolve rapidly. Short development cycles, continuous integration, and rapid prototyping are the norms. In such a landscape, for a perfect product launch can mean losing valuable time and market share. Instead, companies that excel are those that iterate quickly and celebrate the improvements along the way. From software as of platforms that push updates every 2 weeks to consumer electronics companies rolling out incremental firmware improvements, the emphasis is on a rolling wave of smaller yet meaningful enhancements. This not only keeps the user base engaged, but also provides frequent feedback loops that guide further innovation. In-depth research underscores the psychological rationale behind why these increments matter. Studies indicate that consistently acknowledging progress triggers neural pathways associated with reward and motivation. This is not limited to corporate settings. The same principle has been observed in academic environments, health and fitness programs, and even personal finance strategies. Each time a small benchmark is met, whether it's mastering a new language skill or saving the first $1,000 toward a financial goal, the dopamine response encourages repetition and deepens commitment. So, companies or teams systematically harness this response. They're effectively fueling a cycle of continued effort and innovation. But how do we translate these insights into practical applications? First, consider embedding micro-celebrations into project management workflows. For instance, employing a Kanban system or a Scrum framework can spotlight the achievements in real time. Every time a card moves to the column, that's a chance to say, "Good job," or "Let's keep going." It might sound trivial, but the cumulative effect can be profound. Second, these incremental wins to stakeholders, whether they're customers, board members, or investors. Short updates highlighting small but pivotal milestones can sustain interest and optimism, especially when the final goal is months or years away. From a financial perspective, celebrating small wins can also influence how resources are allocated, rather than pouring an entire budget into one massive push. Teams might find better returns by spent over many smaller experiments and improvements. This approach mitigates risk because failure in one micro initiative doesn't jeopardize the entire operation. As soon as a minor success is identified, resources can be relocated to reinforce that success, turning a tiny glimmer into a full-fledged revenue stream or product line extension. Future predictions around incremental celebrations suggest that this practice will become even more critical as remote and hybrid work models continue to grow. The lack of physical presence can sometimes diminish spontaneous recognition, making structured celebration moments vital. Driven insights will allow teams to pinpoint exactly which micro goals have the greatest impact on morale and performance. By analyzing usage patterns, completion rates, and employee engagement metrics, organizations can refine the way they highlight these wins, tailoring recognition programs to suit diverse teams and project types. Additionally, as artificial intelligence and machine learning become more integrated into daily workflows, we can expect AI-driven tools to track incremental progress automatically, sending alerts of recognition when specific benchmarks are met. This will help ensure that small achievements don't slip through the cracks. Rather than only celebrating the closure of a massive project, teams can see a steady stream of mini celebrations that keep motivation high. This data-driven approach will also offer new angles for analyzing how consistent recognition correlates with improved performance, lower turnover, overall job satisfaction. Yet, a cautionary note is, in order, data analysis must remain a tool, not the master. It's possible to become so fixated on numerical validation that we lose sight of the human aspect of small wins. Every micro achievement has to be vetted by metrics to be considered worthy. The intrinsic joy of progress might diminish. Therefore, the best future approach seems to be a balanced one, where data supports and illuminates the genuine, heartfelt celebration of every step forward, rather than dictating which steps deserve acknowledgement. In simpler terms, the synergy between analysis and celebration is what future-proofs the concept of small wins. As markets accelerate and workplaces become increasingly data-driven, leaders and teams who blend empathy with evidence-based strategies will stand out. They'll harness the motivating power of small milestones while proving their value through quantifiable outcomes. This balance ahead in Hart fosters an environment where risk-taking, creativity, and continuous improvement flourish. So how do we integrate all this into a coherent plan moving forward? First, set up measurement tools that capture incremental progress. These could range from software analytics to simple checklists. Second, define thresholds that trigger moments of celebration. For example, 1% increase in user retention, we pause to acknowledge what changed and who contributed. Third, conduct periodic reviews to see if these micro celebrations are producing tangible benefits, such as higher engagement or better user satisfaction scores. Use that data to refine the approach. Finally, maintain the human touch. Encourage teams to share personal reflections on what these small wins mean to them, ensuring the emotional resonance remain in center. Albert Einstein once noted, "Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving." In a modern context, to keep your balance in business or personal pursuits, you must keep celebrating those movements, no matter how small, because it's those smaller, repeated victories that enable you to stay upright through the ever-changing terrain of innovation and competition. Each are 3 key points. recognizing small wins, the discovery process that shifts culture, weaving them into a compelling story that propels teamwork, and backing them with data that validates and refines our approach, coalesce into one overarching principle. Incremental progress is both the engine and the beacon for sustained motivation. When these elements unite, they form a powerful cycle. Each small win is identified, celebrated, documented, measured, and then used to ignite the next. Breaking it down, we discover small wins by remaining vigilant to each inch of forward motion. We celebrate these wins by shaping stories that emotionally engage and align the team's purpose. Analyze them by leveraging data to confirm that these tiny steps are indeed moving the needle in measurable ways. In doing so, we maintain that not just momentum, but also clarity. Knowing that every step is accounted for, improvement is honored, and every challenge is an opportunity to refine and renew our direction. Looking ahead, I envision a future in which celebrating small wins is ingrained into the DNA of organizations, teams, and even personal endeavors. Instead of an occasional pat on the back, it becomes an everyday norm, an ongoing recognition of the steady effort that leads to greatness. Imagine a world where your software pings you at the end of the day to show how many micro goals you've accomplished, reinforcing a feeling of optimism and readiness for tomorrow. Or where virtual collaboration tools highlight each incremental improvement your global team has made, bridging distances with a sense of shared accomplishment. Of course, biggest challenge is ensuring that this practice remains authentic. Simply adding congratulations, pop-ups, or awarding digital badges can feel hollow if not accompanied by genuine feedback and honest appreciation. We must remember that the heart of celebrating small wins is connection. Connecting with what's been achieved, who achieved it, and why it matters. That sense of significance and community is what nurtures the deep motivation we need to tackle the big tasks ahead. I urge all of you to step into this future with a commitment to see value and celebrate each small stride. Path to lasting success is rarely a single straight line. It's a winding road dotted with countless signposts of minor achievements that collectively shape our major breakthroughs. By adopting this balanced approach, story, stats, and hot FUD acknowledgement, we not only elevate our own ambitions, but also inspire those around us to keep going step by step, day by day. Where does this leave as we conclude our time together? With a shared vision in which small wins form the backbone of persistent innovation, unwavering motivation, and collective triumph. Let's look toward the future with optimism. In a world that often feels chaotic, each minor victory is a beacon of stability. By focusing on and celebrating these incremental advances, we cultivate an environment where growth feels tangible and within reach. Technological landscape will only grow more complex, and the challenges we face, be they in business, social impact, or personal goals, will demand resilience. Small wins keep that resilience alive. They remind us that progress is never static. It's a constant evolution born from every lesson we learn and every adaptation we make. And yet, as bright as this future might be, there is a clear challenge. We must not let the noise of daily pressures drown out the subtle signals of forward motion. The pace of modern work can be relentless, pushing us to chase large goals at the expense of the finer details that signify we're actually growing. We risk burnout and cynicism if our focus remains solely on the finish line. No recognition of the mile markers along the way. So I challenge each of you, how will you implement a system, formal or informal, that ensures these smaller markers are spotted, shared, and honored? I stand here, willing to support that challenge. Whether you're an entrepreneur launching a new venture, a manager leading an established team, or someone who is striving excellent personal pursuits, know that you're not alone. Many other leaders in the tech and startup ecosystem are increasingly committed to reinforcing a culture where celebrating small wins isn't just an afterthought. If you're seeking guidance on how to embed these practices into your workflow, or if you need resources to measure and track progress, effectively reach out. There's a growing network of professionals, mentors, and organizations ready to collaborate, share insights, and provide constructive feedback. Our collective support can be the scaffolding that keeps you building one layer at a time. The last piece is perhaps the most crucial, an inspiring close that reminds us all that we stand on the brink of limitless potential, shaped by daily perseverance. So here's my final thought: every monumental achievement in history, whether it was landing on the moon, pioneering electric vehicles, or connecting the world through social platforms, can be dissected into countless small wins. They are the unsung heroes of progress, the bricks that form the foundation of the most ambitious dreams. Recognize them, celebrate them, let them serve as the continuous heartbeat of your motivation. In doing so, not just chasing success, you're building it step by carefully celebrated step. Thank you for sharing your time and energy with me today. May each small win you celebrate this week be the spark that lights a powerful, ongoing fire in whatever endeavor you pursue. Keep going, stay motivated, and remember, the smallest triumph can echo in ways you never imagined if only you allow yourself and your team to pause, take note, and say, this matters. Because it does. And it always will. Safe travels on the road to your next victory.